Welcome, everybody, to the NFL Show on the Gruely True Sports Network. The NFL Show is brought to you by BetNow.eu. Make sure you go to BetNow.eu, use the promo code TRUTH100. I am your co-host for the NFL Show, Mike Goodpaster. Right now, I'd like to welcome in from the FF Face-Off, the real NFL guru, Anthony Cervino. How you doing, Anthony?
I'm doing pretty good, Mike, despite the Cowboys' loss yesterday, but overall pretty good.
All right. I know that's not true. But let's go ahead and let's move on to the first game on Sunday, which was in London, where the Carolina Panthers beat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers 37-26. And I think it's safe to say this. Christian McCaffrey was fairly well handled. 22 carries, 31 yards. Receiving-wise, 4 for 26. This was a Kyle Allen game. And Kyle Allen played his ass off in this game. He didn't make mistakes. He made big throws. Am I crazy to think that maybe Cam Newton is the Wally Pipp in the NFL now? Because Kyle Allen looks like the real deal, and I don't know how you could go back to Cam Newton right now.
I mean, Carolina right now, they're going to go into their bye, and they have a decision to make. But to me, I don't know if there's much of a decision. This is Kyle Allen's team. They're clearly playing for him, and I don't know how you can go back to Cam Newton.
Yeah, and I think if Ron Rivera goes back to Cam Newton, Ron Rivera will be looking for a job by the time the year is over, because these guys don't respond to Cam Newton. Cam Newton's more of a me guy. Kyle Allen's out there getting it done, and if you switch it right now, you're going to cause mass dissension in the locker room also, Anthony.
Yeah, absolutely, because they're rallying behind Kyle Allen, and they're playing good football, and the defense is playing well, and if Cam comes back, I mean, Kyle Allen has won his past 5 starts, dating back to Week 17 last year. Cam Newton has not won 2 straight starts. I can't even tell you when the last time he's won one, and that was probably mid-season last year.
Before Kyle Allen's 5-game winning streak, the 9 games before that, which weren't all Cam Newton, but were partly, the Panthers had lost 9 straight. So, I mean, everybody always talks about the biggest stat for a quarterback is winning. Kyle Allen hasn't lost. Now, if we transition to Tampa Bay, Jameis Winston, 30 for 54, 400 yards, 1 touchdown, 5 interceptions, and
1 fumble.
The Tampa Bay offense was a mess yesterday. I don't think that this is all Winston's fault. I think the offensive line is atrocious. I think the play calling at times was a little questionable, but Jameis Winston was terrible yesterday.
Jameis Winston had a Jameis Winston game, and, a Jameis Winston game is multiple 3 to 5 interceptions, and like I said, 6 total turnovers, including the lost fumble. And, yeah, the Carolina defense, they got to him right around 7 times. He was under pressure all day. I'm not a Jameis Winston guy. I don't see him getting a deal, and we'll talk about the Titans later. At Marcus Mariota, they have a decision to make at quarterback. This is the first and second pick from the 2015 draft, and neither one of them deserve a second contract with the team that drafted them. Tampa Bay, they couldn't get anything going on the ground, and the Panthers were just really teeing off on Cam Newton. The only thing Tampa Bay does well, because they played the Panthers earlier in the year, in both of those games, they held Christian McCaffrey under 80 total yards. Yeah, the only thing they do well is bottle up McCaffrey, even though he still seems to score.
Well, I'll tell you, Chris Godwin is a breakout star in the NFL, whether this team's any good or not. 10 receptions, 151 yards. Mike Evans caught 9 for 96, but Chris Godwin's a stud.
Yeah, I was high on Chris Godwin coming into the year. I always liked the kid, but he was always stuck behind Deshaun Jackson and Adam Humphries. But any time one of those guys went down, Godwin come in and would ball out. And now that he is seeing significant time as a starter, you can make the case that he is as good as Mike Evans and maybe even better.
Oh, I would make the case he's better maybe, because
Mike Evans caught 9 for 90, whatever, but he had 17 targets.
Yeah, and that's a Jameis Winston MO, is to target 1 or 2 guys the whole game, and that's what gets him in trouble, and that's what causes the multiple interceptions and turnovers every game.
If I'm the Buccaneers, I mean, it's not like I don't know if they're completely out of it. I think they can still make a little bit of a run in that division, even though there are two one-loss teams. You have two tight ends, one of which is O.J. Howard, who I don't know what it is. He doesn't have a great rapport with Jameis Winston. Cameron Brate has always been his guy. Why not move an O.J. Howard? And that's been a rumor to a team like the Patriots, who usually have pretty good offensive linemen, and try to get a draft pick and an offensive line upgrade for an O.J. Howard, because the Patriots need a tight end. They need a pass catcher.
Yeah, it would make sense, and it looks like the Patriots would want to do it too, so I think it'll be a win-win for both teams. All right, let's transition to Washington and Miami, which ended up having a great finish because of Ryan Fitzmagic, as they call him, as he came in, was 12 for 18 for 132 yards and a touchdown in the fourth quarter. They came from 17-3 down to come up just short, 17-16. The Redskins, on the other hand, Adrian Peterson, he's still good when he plays the Miami Dolphins. He averaged 5 yards per carry, 118 yards. Case Keenum was Case Keenum. He just didn't make any mistakes, threw a couple touchdown passes, and the Redskins were barely good enough to beat the Dolphins. But this has really got to scare you if you're the Redskins, that you had to go to the wire to beat the Miami Dolphins.
That's their defense collapsing, because the Redskins dominated this game for the better part of it. The one bright spot on the Redskins is Terry McLaurin, the rookie receiver. He had both of the touchdowns yesterday, and even earlier in the year when Case Keenum was a starter, those two have something going together. And, I obviously the Redskins don't have enough to compete this year. But I think Terry McLaurin is going to be a budding star on this team whenever they get Darius Geis. So they'll have pieces moving forward. It's just a matter if they can stay healthy, maybe their fortunes turn around.
Yeah, but they don't have a quarterback. Dwayne Haskins is going to be a complete and utter bust. So that's going to set them back 2 or 3 more years also.
Yeah, I mean, we don't know what Haskins is going to be yet, but I'm not too...
Yeah, we do. I just told you. He'll be a bust. His feet are horrible. His field vision is terrible. He cannot throw a guy open. He's just a dude with a big arm that had one really good year at Ohio State, and I don't see him translating well to the NFL, and I really don't see him translating well in Washington, because there's nobody there to help him along, and it's not like Daniel Snyder is going to get a experienced head coach that's really good, because those kind of guys usually don't want to go hang out with Daniel Snyder, which is why he ends up with the Jay Grudens.
And I was just going to go there. Haskins, his fortunes can turn around if they brought in a decent head coach. But like you said, who really wants to go deal with Daniel Snyder and Bruce Allen?
Nobody. And I don't even think Haskins is that good. If they brought in the right guy, it would work. I just don't think it's going to work out there. Next up, Teddy Bridgewater, 24 for 36, 240 yards, 1 touchdown. He leads the Saints to yet another win. And the thing that's scary here to me is this. When this injury happened and everybody said they're out 6 weeks, I think we made the comment on here, well, if they can go 3-3, they'll be fine. They've already topped that in 4 games. And if you get Drew Brees back here healthy, with the way this defense is playing, this Saints team is a legit Super Bowl contender to win it all.
Yeah, I was really worried about the Saints defense, because earlier in the year they weren't playing this well when Breeze was in, but they really stepped it up the past couple of games, and now this one on the road in Jacksonville. And Gardner Minshew has been playing his best football every week. So, yeah, the Saints defense really stepped up, and, they held Jacksonville to 6 points.
Yeah, Leonard Fournette to 3.6 yards a carry, 20 carries, 72 yards. Gardner Minshew, less than 50% completions, 14 for 29, 163 and an interception. Now, if you think that means Nick Foles will be coming back, it doesn't, because this week Gardner Minshew will get to go to Cincinnati, where he'll look like the Rookie of the Year again. So, in the end, it'll be all right for Jacksonville. They'll get back to 3-4 and still have a chance. But I think the Saints are just going to run away with the South from here. I think eventually, they run away. I think if Kyle Allen continues to play for the Panthers, I think the Panthers could be a 9 or 10 win team. But this Saints team, if you get a healthy Drew Brees back, they could be a 12-win team.
Yeah, I agree there. I just don't agree with the Saints necessarily running away with things, because I think that the Panthers, they're not going anywhere. They also have a good defense. They have an elite running back.
Hey, but remember this. I believe Ron Rivera will play Cam Newton. That's why I say that.
Well, then that's him putting his job on the line.
Yeah, but he will. You watch. I'm betting he will. Or after one loss, they'll bench him. All right, next up we had the pathetic, sorry Cincinnati Bengals, who are 0-6, coached by Opie Taylor. Started off the game with a 7-0 lead off a kick return touchdown. From there, the Baltimore Ravens. This was the most dominating 23-17 game I've ever seen, Anthony, because the Bengals were dominated from start to finish outside of the opening kickoff. It was sad. Joe Mixon, 8 carries for 10 yards. What's really sad, in a game that was relatively close, the Cincinnati Bengals running backs ran the ball 12 freaking times.
Yeah, and what a waste to a guy like Joe Mixon and even a Gio Bernard, who they gave a pretty decent contract to earlier in the year. But when you're trailing, when you're playing from behind, how are you going to get these running backs going? You can't really commit to the run, right?
No. Well, you could, but they're not going to do that. And the thing is, the only thing you're doing is getting Andy Dalton beat up. And the saddest thing to me is the Bengals, Lou Anarumo or whatever the hell his name is.
Their defensive coordinator,
He should be fired already. They played against Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson ran for 152 yards. He threw for 236. And Lamar Jackson, we already know, is not a big-time quarterback. So why would you not basically just keep him in the pocket, spy him, and make him beat you throwing the ball? Instead, they give up 152 yards to Lamar Jackson there. They give up 52 yards to Ingram. Gus Edwards, 6 for 34. Justice Hill, 5 for 31. So once again, the Bengals gave up almost 250 yards of rushing offense, and they gave up 498 yards of total offense. They can't tackle. They very seldom do anything except play vanilla. And if I got to see a 300-pound defensive tackle drop into pass coverage again, I'm just going to smack myself because this is sickening. Lou Anarumo is in over his head just like Opie Taylor is. They all need to be fired. And I think there's a really good chance here. The Cincinnati Bengals could go 0-16. I think they could be worse than the Dolphins just because I think Brian Flores, they seem to play hard for him. The Cincinnati Bengals do not play hard for Opie Taylor.
Do you really see them as an 0-16?
You there? Anthony? You there?
Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah, now I'm here.
I don't see any.
Do you really see them as an 0-16 team? Are they that bad, even getting an A.J. Green back?
I don't see anybody being an 0-16 in the NFL because they've been playing for 100 years and it's happened twice. But their offensive line is horrible. Their coaching is horrible. And even with A.J. Green back, I mean, A.J. Green's going to take his sweet time getting back anyways because who wants to come back to this mess? So, yeah, I mean, when you look at the Bengals' schedule, it's not like you see a bunch of winnable games. I mean, they play the Jaguars. They play the Rams, which, hell, the Rams suck, but still. Then they have a bye week. Then they play the Ravens. They go to Oakland. They host Pittsburgh. They host the Jets, who have Sam Darnold. They go to Cleveland. They host the Patriots. They're at the Dolphins. And then they host the Browns. So when I look at this, the only game where I look at it and think, oh, they got a really good chance there is probably the Dolphins. You know, you get games like maybe the Jets. Maybe they can upset the Browns once. But, I mean, this team at the start of the year on the Bengals show, I caught a lot of hell because I said they wouldn't win more than 2 or 3 games. And I'm sticking to that, and I don't even know if they can get to 2 or 3 now. You there, Anthony? Did we lose Anthony again? Anthony. All right, guys, let's go ahead and continue. Anthony, when you get back on, let me know. The Seattle Seahawks beat the Cleveland Browns 32-28. The Browns are another team of Freddie Kitchens that I think are in way over their head. He's the wrong guy for the job. I've been saying that all year. And in this game, Russell Wilson, 23 for 33, 295 yards, 2 touchdowns. Chris Carson, 24 carries, 124 yards on the ground with a touchdown. And you look at the Cleveland side with Baker Mayfield, the interceptions is the killer. I mean, he was 22 for 37, 249 and a touchdown, but 3 picks. Nick Chubb ran the ball well, but when you look at this Cleveland team, to me, they just look poorly coached. Baker Mayfield is making too many bad decisions, and when you put that together, it's trouble. But I will say this, even though I think Kitchens is not the right guy there is enough talent there that they can win the AFC North, because I think it's really possible the AFC North winner could be a 7 or 8 win team. All right, guys, real quick, we're going to take a commercial break, and then we will be right back right after this.
Join BetNow.eu, courtesy of the Grueling Truth Sports Network, and get a 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit up to $1,000. Just use the promo code TRUTH50. That's promo code TRUTH50.
All right, guys, we're back. Anthony, are you back? Anthony. It looks like Anthony's not back yet. All right, guys, let's continue on. I'll just fly solo for a little while, see if we can figure out our technical issues. Another game that was extremely impressive to me yesterday was the Minnesota Vikings. They come out and they completely manhandled, dominated physically a beat-up, battered Philadelphia Eagles team. They beat the Eagles 38-20. Kirk Cousins was 22 for 29, 333 yards, 4 touchdowns, 1 interception. They didn't run the ball as well as they had been. Alex Madison was their leading carrier. It was 14 carries, 63 yards. Hold on here. We may have Anthony. Anthony, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
All right. We're talking right now Philadelphia Eagles, Minnesota Vikings. The Philadelphia Eagles, of course, the presumptive NFC East champion, were manhandled by the Minnesota Vikings last night, 38-20. And the thing that stood out to me here was they didn't run the ball that great in Minnesota. But Kirk Cousins played really well, which if he does that, the Vikings are a Super Bowl contender.
No, I think going into it, the Vikings knew that the Eagles played really tough defense against the run, but they really can't cover anybody in the secondary. And this was a Kirk Cousins game. You know, he was familiar. Kirk Cousins played the Eagles a lot during his time in Washington. And he finally got Stephon Diggs going. I mean, Diggs had a hat trick, 3 touchdowns, went ballistic, 150 or 60 yards. Adam Thielen got his. So I think it was just one of those games where it was game planned for Kirk Cousins to succeed.
Yeah, and we talked about the Eagles couldn't run the ball. Jordan Howard, 13 for 49. And I think once you get to early third quarter, the kind of run was out of the way once they went down 31-10. Carson Wentz didn't play bad, 306 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. And I think this sets up, and we'll talk about your Cowboys here in a little bit, but it sets up a huge game in Dallas this coming weekend, doesn't it?
You know, yeah, it does. And Doug Peterson's given Dallas bulletin board material by saying they're going to go to Dallas and win the game. And it's not like the Eagles are rolling here. They're coming off of a pretty bad loss themselves. I don't know if they have any room to talk at all, but maybe this is the spark that Dallas needs.
Well, I don't think that could ever be the spark that a team needs just because somebody said something. You get in a game,
Tom Brady plays with a chip on his shoulder. Anything that somebody says about Tom Brady,
you just said
takes it to the heart.
He plays with a chip on his shoulder no matter what, which is why he is the greatest quarterback that ever lived. And Doug Peterson's taking on Jason Garrett. The Eagles are going to go in, and the Eagles are going to beat them. And then your Cowboys are 3-4, and we'll talk about Jason Garrett here in a little bit. But we're going to transition out to another team, the best team in the state of Texas, the Houston Texans, who are 4-2. I'm not meaning to rub this in either, Anthony, but 3 weeks ago or 4 weeks ago, you did say that they wouldn't lose again this decade. Maybe it should have been, will they win again this decade?
Yep, good point there.
All right. So the Houston Texans came from 20-3 down to beat the Kansas City Chiefs 31-24. Deshaun Watson, 30 for 42, 280 yards, a touchdown, 2 picks. The big thing here is, once again, Kansas City cannot stop the run. Watson gets 42. Duke Johnson gets 34. Carlos Hyde gets 116 yards. And I'm going to say it again. You can't really be a Super Bowl contender if you can't stop the run and you can't run the ball. And once again, there was a total of outside. Patrick Mahomes had one run. This team ran the ball 10 times to Kansas City Chiefs for 50 yards, 54 yards. You're not going to win when you can't run and you can't stop the run.
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head there, because early in the game, the Chiefs had a 2-possession lead on the Texans. And I think the Texans, they obviously know that Kansas City can't stop the run, because they just kept pounding Carlos Hyde up the middle and chipping away at that lead. Meanwhile, Kansas City, when you have a 2-score lead and you keep passing the ball, it's just a recipe for disaster.
Yeah, and Kansas City is a team that now has lost 2 straight games, but not just 2 straight games. They've lost 2 straight home games. And now they've got to go to Denver. They host Green Bay. They host Minnesota. This could get really bad in Kansas City really quick, Anthony.
And this is a Denver team that has won 2 in a row that they're going to get on Thursday night.
Yeah, and they've won it by
a Denver team that pitched a shutout. I know they pitched a shutout to Tennessee and Marcus Mariota, but if you make the Chiefs one-dimensional, you see what can happen.
Yeah, and that's what people have been doing to him.
Pat Mahomes is hurt. He's playing hurt, 2 ankle injuries, one in the season opener, and then the one against the Colts, and he's clearly not right. They can't protect him. They can't run the ball to take the pressure off. I think what Andy Reid knows, and this is going to end up shooting the whole team in the foot, is they're just going to try to outscore you and try to win 35 to 34 ball games, and that's not going to win in the NFL.
That's why Andy's
as much as people want it to.
I mean, Andy's been to the playoffs how many times? And he's been to the Super Bowl once. So it seems to be the Achilles heel with him anyways. Whether they can run or they can't run, he refuses to try to run. You still got LaShawn McCoy, and he was averaging 5 yards a carry. But with a 20-3 lead, when you end that game and only have ran the ball 10 or 11 times with your running backs, there's a major issue there. Let's go to Arizona, where we had a shootout. The Cardinals beat the Falcons 34-33. The Cardinals are now 2-3-1. The Falcons dropped to 1-5. I think the story here is Kyler Murray, 27 for 37, 340 yards and 3 touchdowns. Not that I think he's the story, but I think the story here is just how bad the Atlanta Falcons defense is and how that bodes very poorly for the man who calls the defense, which is head coach Dan Quinn.
I mean, we kill Dan Quinn every week on this show, and it's well-deserved. The Falcons they need to make changes. Too much talent to have that poor of a showing week in and week out. And then you let the rookie quarterback really had his way yesterday without one of his best receivers, Christian Kirk. And now the Cardinals have won 2 in a row, and they'll be getting Patrick Peterson back next week.
Yeah, so I still don't take them seriously because they beat the Falcons and the Bengals, and they barely beat the Falcons and the Bengals. But they're definitely trending in a better direction.
They've been in every game this year.
Yeah, that's what I've said. They're trending in the positive direction, where teams like Opie Taylor's Bengals and Dan Medicine Woman Quinn, or whatever his name is, they're not. And
I think Patrick Peterson's, he had the 6-game suspension for the PED use or whatever, but you don't think that 2 of those losses, Patrick Peterson, they're 1-possession losses, he could have been the difference maker.
Yeah, he could have been. I still think that team has too many holes, but I think they could get to 6 wins. If they get to 5 or 6 wins, I think this is a successful season in Arizona.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that at all, because I didn't bank on them winning 2 games all year.
All right, next up, the San Francisco 49ers. Now, who in the world would have thought they'd be a contender to go to the Super Bowl a couple months ago? You're supposed to say you right then. But the 49ers dominated physically the Rams. They held Jared Goff to 78 yards passing. They shut down the Rams' run game. And the thing that impressed me the most was the play calling by Kyle Shanahan. With both of his starting tackles out, his starting fullback out, he changed his offense and basically worked around those positions. They didn't run the ball great. They didn't really throw the ball great. but they are a hard-nosed physical football team that brings it every week. And I think right now they're one of the top 2 or 3 teams in the NFL.
I think they're possibly the most complete team in the NFL. And even though they didn't get to run the ball as well as they did last week, they are missing a couple of key pieces, especially that fullback, Kyle Juszczyk, because he's, obviously he does a lot for that offense. He does a lot for that ground game. But, when you can play good defense, run the ball, and your quarterback doesn't make a lot of turnovers, they're sitting at 5-0 right now, 4-0. Because they had their bye? What are they, 4
no,
or
they're
5?
5-0. They're 5-0,
Okay.
which means they're 2 games ahead of the Rams. They're a game ahead of the Seahawks. So I think things are only going to get better for this 49ers team because I think Jimmy Garoppolo will play a little bit better each week.
Do they need to make a move for a receiver, or do you think they have enough?
I think they have enough with this team and the way this team's designed. This team is designed to pound you, beat on you. I mean, if they could get another receiver, that would be great, but who are they getting? Because it doesn't look like the Bengals are interested in giving up A.J. Green.
Odell.
Oh, you really want to risk that, though? You have a team where everybody seems to get along, everybody seems to be on the same page, and you want to bring Odell Beckham in? And the other thing is this. I think this team is a top 4 team and a Super Bowl contender without bringing in a wide receiver. I don't know that bringing in a wide receiver changes things that much because I think this is a team that has a 2 or 3-headed running back system. They want to run the ball. And you've got Kittle, who is a damn good tight end. You get Deebo Samuel, guys like that could break out. I just don't see the need to bring in Odell Beckham and risk it. If you could get an A.J. Green, I think the history of A.J. Green is he doesn't cause trouble. It's one thing. If you're bringing in Beckham, you've always got the risk.
Yeah, but, for as bad as things are in Cleveland, I would say OBJ is on his best behavior.
Yeah.
Because he could be a lot worse.
Yeah, and he's not really producing either, which you have to ask.
Well, that's on Baker. That's on Freddie Kitchens and Baker Mayfield.
Yeah. All right, next up, the Denver Broncos look like a Vic Fangio defense now. They're now 2-4. Ryan Tannehill was 13 for 16, replacing Marcus Mariota. He did throw an interception. I think I think Tannehill has got to be the quarterback from here on out. I haven't heard what they said today. Joe Flacco, 18 for 28, 178 yards. Lindsey and Freeman combined for a little over 100 yards. But the Broncos are a team that lost a couple close games earlier in the year. So do you think this is a team that could get back in it? They're set at 2-4 right now.
I mean, in theory, yes, because
How about this?
the AFC is so bad.
If they beat Kansas City, they are in this.
Yes, if they beat the Chiefs Thursday night, then it's a whole nother conversation.
Yeah, because then you're 3-4, and so are the Chiefs.
I mean, look. I mean, Joe Flacco, you could be a lot worse at quarterback. He's been there. He has a plus playoff record when he gets there, and won a Super Bowl. So it's not like you have terrible quarterback play like in the past.
Yeah, and the thing is, Denver's going to take the run game away from Kansas City, even though Kansas City won't want to do it. The question will be, is Denver's secondary good enough to hold up against the Patriots of the world, the Chiefs of the world, the Texans of the world? And are they capable of scoring enough points to beat teams that are that good offensively?
I don't think so.
I don't either.
This isn't the same Denver defense from, 3, 4, 5 years ago where you couldn't gain an inch on them. They were playing like the Bears are playing today.
Yeah. But, all right, next up, I can't wait to talk about this game. The Dallas Cowboys versus the New York Jets. I would like to tell you this, Anthony. I bet the Cowboys gave the points. I was on a 6-game win streak over the weekend and ended up only making $20 for that 5 out of 6 because your Cowboys choked all over themselves. Dak Prescott, 28 for 40, 277, no touchdowns, no interceptions. Ezekiel Elliott, 28 carries, 105 yards. The thing that stands out to me is I look at that, and then I look at the Jets, 23 for 32, 338 for Darnold, 2 touchdowns. Bell, 14 carries, 50 yards. If I just looked at those stats, I'd think the Cowboys won the game. So what the hell happened?
Yeah, the biggest difference in this, Amari Cooper, got hurt early. Randall Cobb was inactive. Both tackles were out for the second straight game. A lot of holes on that offense, and the Cowboys come out flat, and they seem to come out flat every game.
Well, and that's coaching
and by
because
by time they turn it on, they're down by 3 scores, 3 possessions, and they're playing catch up to the wire.
well,
You're not going to win football games like that.
And remember this: the San Francisco 49ers have 10 times more injuries and went to LA and won yesterday.
Well, it's depth and it's coaching, but this Dallas defense was supposed to be as good as anybody. How do you give up these big plays to a Robbie Anderson this week? It was a 90-yard touchdown. That was the momentum swing because Jason Garrett decided to go for it instead of kicking a chip shot field goal. And first play coming off the turnover on downs was a big touchdown. That was a big momentum shift. Yeah.
So Cowboys-Eagles is a huge game, especially for Dallas since it is in Dallas. What do you think what's the expectations as a Cowboy fan? Do you think you go in? Because 3 weeks ago, when I would have made a comment like the Eagles are the best team in the NFC East, you would have attacked me mercilessly.
I don't know who. I mean, the Giants might be the best team in the NFC East, and I say that sarcastically, but it seems like the Eagles and the Cowboys are giving the division back to each other.
Yeah, but
because whenever one can pick up a game, they give it right back.
Well, and this was a big miss by the Cowboys with the Eagles playing in Minnesota too. I mean,
but we have a lot. We have a lot of, whether it's the Chiefs, Cowboys, Eagles, throw the Rams in there. These are 4 teams that many had in the postseason that are losers of 3 straight or 2 out of their last 3.
Well, I think it's possible you could get up to 3 teams with 500 or worse records in the playoffs this year. The way this is going right now.
Is this parity or is it just poor football all the way around?
Well, it's the old question: is it parity or is it mediocrity, or does everybody just suck? I think it's more everybody just sucks because I think
everybody sucks but Tom Brady. Maybe that.
Yeah, everybody but Tom Brady and maybe the San Francisco 49ers. I mean, because right now, I think the Minnesota Vikings are really good. But really, if you go complete football teams that can do everything, I mean, there's only off the top of my head, 3 teams I can think of. The 49ers, the Vikings, and the Patriots. Is there anybody else that's a complete?
But do you really think the Patriots are complete? They're not running the ball well.
Well, they ran for over 100 yards last week, and when they want to, they will, because it's the Patriots. They're a complete team because they've got a complete coach who will figure it out. And no, I don't necessarily think they're a complete team because I think they need another big play receiver also.
Well, they'll be little bit of news, right? They're going to be getting N'Keal Harry back at practice. A lot of the guys who opened the year on the injured reserve list, they will now be eligible to return to practice and play either this week or next week. So that's a little bit of news for the Patriots and maybe a little bit of help with N'Keal Harry.
Yeah, so really when you look at it, the fact that Kirk Cousins and Jimmy Garoppolo are not playing great, maybe there's no complete football teams right now, Anthony. Which
I don't know. I would probably give it to San Francisco.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't think we can, without hesitation, have no doubt in Garoppolo. I like Garoppolo. I think that it will be that way. But, all right, next up, the Pittsburgh Steelers dominated the Chargers for 3 quarters, had a 24-0 lead, and almost gave it away at the end. But the Steelers held on to win 24-17. Devlin Hodges, 15 for 20, 132 yards. And if I have to hear something else about a duck calling championship when I'm watching Sunday Night Football, I'm going to scream. But the other thing that stood out to me here was Benny Snell, 17 carries for 75 yards. The Steelers, I wouldn't say they looked good last night, but defensively they looked really good. And this team played with a lot of heart.
I've been saying this for weeks.
They
I've
played
been
with
saying
a lot
that
of
for
heart.
weeks.
So,
not even the heart, but, trading for Minkah Fitzpatrick might have saved their season. Because, you lose Ben Roethlisberger, but Minkah Fitzpatrick drastically upgrades that defense and that secondary to where, you're going to win some games now with whatever quarterback's back there. You managed to win with Devlin Hodges and coming off the bye, they should get Mason Rudolph back.
But how about this? I'll make the case that a guy like Devlin Hodges, who played at Samford, which is a D1 AA school, there's a lot of guys like that that are good enough to probably be starting quarterbacks in the NFL over guys like Mitchell Trubisky. And a guy like Mitchell Trubisky, if you watch him in college compared to Devlin Hodges is better. So a lot of times, just because he's in the ACC or he's in the SEC, people assume that quarterback's better. And a lot of times, guys like Devlin Hodges never even get a chance. So I think it's great what he's doing in Pittsburgh, even though I'm not a Steelers fan. And with the Chargers, I mean, they're on life support right now at 2-4, even though they're in a division where they're not out of it. But their offensive line is bad. They couldn't run the ball to save their lives last night. Phillip Rivers throws a couple picks. Chargers are in trouble.
Yeah, and they get Melvin Gordon back, and he's really not making that much of an impact at all. And it really shows him missing all of the offseason and training camp and the preseason for this holdout. That had a bigger impact than the front office maybe thought.
Yeah.
Maybe the Chargers would be faring better if Austin Eckler was getting the touches until Melvin Gordon's good to go and fully, back to form. A big boost for the Chargers was getting Hunter Henry back, who really balled out last night and kept them in the game with 2 touchdowns after, missing all the early portion of the season with the knee?
Yeah. Yeah. All right, next up, tonight we have a huge game in the NFC North where the Lions will travel to Green Bay and play the Packers. The spread on this game opened with Green Bay by 6. It's been bet all the way down to 3.5 points. That's with 68% of public money being placed on the Packers. This means the big professional bettors are going with the Lions. Do you agree with the big professional bettors?
See, I think this game can go in either direction because Matt Stafford actually plays really well against the Packers. These are normally high-scoring games. There's no Devontae Adams, and I think that's going to be significant because I think Matt Patricia will game plan a lot better for that than Dallas did. But the key for the Packers is going to be getting Aaron Jones going because that's one thing Detroit isn't doing well on defense right now is stopping the run. But I'm very torn with this game, but I do think the Lions have a realistic shot of winning.
Yeah, and you look at it, Detroit had lost like 24 straight trips up until 2015 in Wisconsin. They have now won 3 of the last 4 games in Lambeau Field, and this is my big thing. I'm going with the Lions. I think the Lions are going to win this game straight up. I think the Packers' offense has not been great. They've ran the ball well. But you take Devontae Adams out of this, and I think that it will make it much easier for the Lions to maybe put an extra guy or 2 in the box to stop that run.
You see this being a big swing in points or a close, like a 3-point game?
I think it's close, but I'm just the Devontae Adams loss. I think is a killer here.
Yeah, because now you're going to have Darius Slay matched up against Marquez Valdez-Scantling, and MVS is good, but he's not a number 1 like Devontae Adams.
Yeah.
So if Slay can shut him down one-on-one, then yeah, you can throw the extra guy up in the box.
Yeah, because you can play man in that case and have, 7, 8 guys in the box. So I think they're going to get this. Now, we look at a little news. What's the Amari Cooper latest update on his thigh bruise?
They don't think it's significant, so I don't see him missing any time.
And then from what I see, Todd Gurley has a chance to return this week?
Yeah, slight chance, but I don't know if that's going to help or hurt the Rams.
I don't know either. Jerry Jones.
Because Malcolm Brown had a similar stat line as Gurley was giving you minus the touchdowns.
Yeah, the Rams' problem is the offensive line is not very good. Does that have a lot to do with the age of Andrew Whitworth?
I mean, he's pushing 38, 39 years old. So
yeah,
that, and then losing the 2 in the interior this offseason. Sullivan retired and Saffold's in Tennessee.
All right, so if you had to give me a Super Bowl prediction today, who would be your 2 teams?
If I had to pick the Super Bowl
who's
right now,
who's the best team in the AFC? Who's the best team in the NFC?
Patriots, 49ers.
All right, I agree. So I just like the fact that you didn't say Cowboys. That's the first time you wouldn't have said that.
I can't do that with a straight face right now.
All right. Anything else you want to talk about, Anthony, before we wrap it up?
No, think about we got everything.
All right. We will be back tomorrow to do a little post game for the Lions Packers, look at all your NFL injury news, all the NFL news overall. On Wednesday, we'll be back with Sam Teets to talk about the quarterback rankings, which I think that we've, influenced Sam to straighten his rankings up. So his rankings are pretty much dead on what we think now, Anthony.
Have you seen him?
No, but I saw him last week. And last week's, if you look at it, they were almost exactly what I would have thought they were. He was all over the place those first couple weeks.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, he was.
Make sure you check out the NFL show every day at noon. Make sure you check out the Real NFL Guru at Real NFL Guru. Is it the
Real NFL Guru? Yes,
the Real NFL Guru on Twitter. Also, you could check out the FF Face Off show with Anthony and Mike Hoff. You could check out Twitter at FF Face Off. Correct?
Yes.
Anything else you want to plug?
Just follow me on social media and follow the show. You can get it anywhere of the top podcast platforms. I just wanted to say one thing about Sam's quarterback rankings. Expect Lamar Jackson to come right back up.
Why?
Because of the game he played yesterday, they won,
Really?
and I just know Sam's dying to put him up back into the top 10.
He should be in the bottom 10. He was terrible yesterday, too. He still sucks throwing the ball. And the Cincinnati Bengals can't stop anybody running because Opie Taylor's an idiot. And from now on, everybody needs to start calling the coach of the Bengals Opie Taylor. And I will beat on this until everybody does. Hashtag fire Opie Taylor. Hit that up. All right, guys. You can hear all the Grueling Truth shows pretty much everywhere, including Spotify, iHeartRadio, iTunes. You know the drill. So make sure you come back and check out me and Anthony Cervino every noon, Monday through Friday, on the Grueling Truth Sports Network. So for Anthony Cervino, I'm Mike Goodpaster. You've been listening to the Grueling Truth, where the legends speak.